Sure. Thank you. Thank you. So officially, very good afternoon to, rather very good evening to all of you who are attending this faculty development program. And this is really a good opportunity for all of us to have this opportunity of learning from various resources which have been arranged by the organizers for this particular course. And this emerging trends in microgrid. Professor Chauhan, am I allowed to switch off my camera because there may be some network issues in the during? So,
yes, sir. You may. You
okay.
may.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. How I will go back? I don't know. How it can be done? Okay. Okay. Am I audible?
Yes, sir.
Okay, that's good. So I will just make it no,
Full screen, sir.
make it full screen. Yeah. Okay. So emerging trends in microgrid. So I hope all of us who are attending this course, they are the power engineers who have some technical background in the area of this power system. And by this, we are the power engineers who are concerned for this electric supply of the global electric supply in this world. And this power generation and distribution, they have always been the key features but towards the development of modern society. As we all know, that electricity has developed as a very clean energy resource, and that is the basic reason of its popularity. Just a minute. So our concern point about the points about which we are extremely concerned, they are that the energy demand is increasing very rapidly day by day, number one. Number two, the energy resources which were treated as the primary resources, they are diminishing continuously. Their availability is reducing day by day. Number three, this traditional network of this power transmission, electricity transmission and distribution, they are getting older, or aging effect is visible on these things, right? So basically aging is happening, the reason being that this electricity network that is more than 130 years old, when the first experiment for generating the commercial generation of electricity started, that we will discuss. And I will try to prove that that very first experiment of Edison, which was a commercial production of the electricity, that was also a microgrid as per the definition provided very late, more than 70 years after that particular thing. So this traditional electric power grid has been designed to accommodate the traditional energy distribution system, and which basically that particular system which was designed, that was it was very difficult to implement so many new technologies in that system. So this particular continuous system has been upgrading in very continuous manner, and whatever new technology comes, that is basically becomes the part of the older technology, and in that way this new technology keep on coming for our electricity. So in this way, this electric grid of today, that has faced many challenges regarding this development of improved power generation and this distribution. And as the utility grid becomes computerized with the improved power technology, so many things have come in this way. And then came this power electronic devices for this ease, just to make the more efficient electric power conversion, and this incorporation of distributed energy resources. Then comes this renewable energy resources. So along with the new technologies such as microgrid and smart grid, so these challenges have become very difficult to handle for the power engineers. So in this way, we can say this microgrid also a technology similar to this smart grid, where this power generation and distribution both take part, or you can say consumption, they take part simultaneously within some limited geographical boundaries, right? And we also take advantage of the distributed generation, such as residential solar systems, or we also include this energy storage batteries, and other than batteries, we take some other mechanical and electrical energy storage devices, which can be a part of this microgrid. And presently, the main focus is on these residential solar systems, which are available in the sizes of, they can be easily installed on your rooftop, or it can be installed as a major solar farm. So in such scenarios, these things, what they are providing, they are causing this bidirectional flow of electricity, right? And this bidirectional flow of electricity has also become a challenge for the distribution system. So that because their power demand is basically, they have to plan their supply according to the power demand. And by this bidirectional power flow, sometimes the things become a bit difficult to assess what may be the actual demand at that particular moment, and how much electricity will be generated by this renewable energy resources. So basically, this intermittency of these renewable energy resources, that that has become a major problem for utilities in terms of this planning and economic terms also. So it is continuously being observed that this utility companies, they are realizing, or we can say the complete power system sector is observing that this global electricity systems have started following a trend of, we call that term 3D, right? So those 3Ds have been identified as decentralize, decarbonize, and democratize. So in case of decentralized means, in rather basically in earlier days, just because of the economy of scale, this major generating stations were formed for the largest size units. We still have so many thermal power plants which have a generation in terms of megawatts, and multiple units of 600 megawatt are established at a similar location, so that that particular power plant is providing total generation capacity they are having, that is more than 2000 kilowatt. But after that, in the present scenario, when it was found that this distributed energy resources, they are easy to implement and it is easy to take supply from them. So this decentralization of these generating stations has started, right? So there are several examples and there are several models available where you can generate your electricity for your requirement. There has become a trend of zero energy buildings. So it does not mean that, yeah, Mr. Sandil, I will just start moving. Basically, we are just discussing this. Okay, I can show it here, the first slide. Okay, I got your message. Thank you. So this decentralization, what happened in case of decentralization? This small power plants in terms of local resources, in terms of these renewable energy resources, wind and this fuel cell and this and along with solar, they have started appearing for fulfilling the energy needs of the people, right? And as you see that this electric vehicle is also a part of this FDP in the title, we can also treat these this electric vehicle as a movable battery, right? You can call it battery on wheels, right? So in this way, this is also an active participant in the microgrid. In the new decentralization scenario of the power system, it has become a major participant. So these 3Ds, which we are summarizing as decentralized, decarbonize, and democratize. So the advantage of these, so these trends, why we started following these trends? These trends are driven by the need to lowering the lowering the electricity cost, and they were reason was to replace the aging infrastructure and improving the resilience and reliability, for which the microgrids are the major source. These are the advantages of microgrid. Resiliency and reliability is improved. And also this CO2 emission, which was being highlighted in this Paris Agreement, Kyoto Agreement, something like that. More agreements are also there, where this climate change was a major concern. So by that thing, this reduced CO2 emissions by thermal power plant was also a major driver for all these things. And finally, we can say the most important thing was that with these local facility of generating electricity with using the microgrid, we were able to provide this reliable electricity to those areas where this transmission and distribution network was not reached before, and where the transmission is very difficult to lay down the transmission lines. In those areas also we can set up these microgrids and do these electricity supply, make available for all those things. So this balance of these driving factors which we just discussed, and specific solution which is required for which geographical area. Solar will be more comfortable for this particular area, wind will be comfortable for this particular area. So these details, so this balance between these sources and the drivers, that may differ from place to place, because this all is based on the geographical availability of resources in that geographical area. So in all these scenarios which we have just discussed, these microgrids have emerged as a flexible architecture for deploying distributed energy resources. And these distributed resources, they have a capability to meet the range, a wide range of needs of different communities, right? So we connect these microgrids with the factor that they are capable of fulfilling the needs of the communities, either in islanded mode or in grid connected mode. In both ways, these microgrids are the resources, and they are the latest technology which fulfills the supply, which fulfills the requirement of electricity, even the grid is not connected there. Okay. So sometimes what is there in case of these new area of industrialized countries, where the countries are really developed countries and they are having a very good network and very reliable network of electricity. In those references, we can discuss microgrids in the context of a mature macrogrid, you can say. So this macrogrid is having a feature of generating units of the gigawatt supply, and it is dispersed in a very long geographical area, right? And it is also having the energy storage devices in that, and sometimes they are also having the energy resources which are based on this conventional carbon based fossil fuels, right? So in those areas, in the definition of microgrid, there is no restriction of not using any source, right? It only highlights on the distributed generation, distributed energy resources, which can fulfill the requirement of electricity locally. Okay, so we shall start it here with this first slide, where we have highlighted this importance of energy. So this energy requirement has always, energy is considered as one of the most crucial measure for economic growth and human advancement. This we all know. And among these, this electricity has also been found this clean, efficient, affordable, and reliable energy service, which is found very essential for global prosperity. This particular statement, where I'm connecting the consumption of electricity with the global prosperity, this is also being verified in some this economical surveys also, where they have connected these things with the where the prosperity of the country has been connected with the consumption or per capita consumption of the electricity, right? But what is happening nowadays, the growth in world's population has necessitated the dramatic increase in energy demand across the globe, because we are coming with the new devices which can be used for different purposes, and they all are based on they are dependent on electricity for their operation. And we can find out that this particular energy outlook, which was published by this International Energy Agency Paris in their report of 2016, they made a forecast that by 2040 there will be an increase of 30%. The number may look smaller, but this particular assumption of 30%, basically that is on the basis that the population will increase, consumption will increase, definitely increase, but by that time we will also develop the new technologies where the consumption of each device will also reduce. As we have started, earlier we were using bulb, then we came to this CFLs, then we came to the LED. So right now we have the technology of LED, of where we have this facility to use this 9-watt LED bulb, which is sufficiently giving you the illumination equal to the 100-watt bulb. So in this way, the energy requirement is assumed or forecasted that it will be around 30%. So what is happening presently? Presently, this fossil fuel based consumption is presently we are doing, and where this energy conversion process is dependent on these 3 steps. First is the burning of fossil fuels, then they release heat energy, and finally this heat energy is converted into electricity using these boilers and turbines in case of thermal energy generation plants. So these conversion processes, they cause this increased greenhouse gas emissions, right, which has been found as a major reason for these climatic change issues which we are discussing since last several years globally. And in this way, these greenhouse gas emissions, they are contributing towards the global warming issues, right? So responsibility lies with all of us. We will have to identify what is on the stake and how we shall act to find out the new technologies for energy conversion and electricity generation, so that these issues which have been found harmful for the future generation, they shall be mitigated. So to overcome these problems, the large scale deployment of renewable energy resources, that is solar, wind, biomass, hydro and tidal power, that has been done in past, right? United Nations has also developed a United Nations Sustainable Plan and Development Plan, and according to its goal 7, this affordable and clean energy is also in its agenda. Accordingly, there is one Paris Climate Agreement which have very stricter goals for all its participant countries, and they also have an emphasis on the participant countries to promote installation of renewable energy resources. Now the term comes ki what is this renewable energy, right? A very simple definition of renewable energy is that energy produced from natural processes which are inexhaustible, right? But let me make you one thing clear, that microgrid is not having an essential requirement of renewable energy, but this renewable energy requirement is in view of making our electricity generation more green and more eco-friendly, more environment-friendly in future. So these renewable energy resources, they offer a solution to the challenges of this rising electricity demand without any global warming threat, with environmental sustainability. I hope this term is clear to you, what is environmental sustainability, and they provide the ability to provide power to even the most underprivileged pupil living in the remotest area where the grid is still not connected and the traditional power network is still not capable to supply the electricity in those points, in those remote locations. And in those locations, these renewable energy resources, they can easily generate electricity locally for the requirement of that community. Okay. So these RERs can be, how to remove this? Ah. So these renewable resources can be classified by their dispatchability, means they can be referred as dispatchable sources and non-dispatchable sources. So dispatchability is a term which defines that the generating source of energy or electricity that has a ability to adjust the power output as per the requirement of the system. Whenever more power is required, it can generate more, and whenever smaller requirements are there, it can reduce the generation or supply, right? And non-dispatchable sources, mostly these renewable energy sources, they are treated as non-dispatchable sources because they are depend on the generation causes, like PV solar plant. It has its variable output depending upon the solar radiation. Simply the wind energy is also dependent upon the wind speed and other parameters depending upon where these renewable energy resources are used. They are dependent upon this small hydropower. They are dependent upon the flow of power or flow of the stream, whatever these, how this is controlled. That is a different issue. But presently, these renewable energy resources, when they are being used in conjunction with the storage, either battery storage, means like chemical storage or mechanical storage. So whenever they are being in terms of in conjunction with the storage, they have this dispatchability, right? So battery has become a very important parameter, and the lowering cost of lowering cost of this energy storage or battery storage with time, that has increased the opportunities for adoption of these renewable energy resources for electricity generation. So I was only saying that this, but I have especially highlighted this small hydropowers at the renewable energy resources. And why I'm not considering this large hydropower? Because there is a study which was performed in 2004. It was published here. In Brazil, it was done, and it was done in the reservoir of a big power dams in Brazil. And they found that these large hydropowers are not considered as RERs because they have very huge and extensive environmental impacts, and they are equally responsible for some emissions which are not less than this greenhouse gas emission of thermal power plants, etc., etc. Right? So what they did these experimental measurements, and they determined that the gas emissions through bubbles formed on the lake bottom by this decomposition organic matter which is available in the bottom of the lake or reservoir, right? And these particular emissions which are taking place in form of solid and gas, they are rising up the lake gradient by this molecular diffusion, right? And this particular publication discussed and summarized that the greenhouse gas emissions, mainly nitrogen, carbon dioxide, and methane, which are the part of these greenhouse gases, they produced underwater biomass decomposition by bacteria. So they are equally generating in terms of magnitude, and that's why these large hydropowers, they are not considered in this particular category of renewable resources as published by this, right? There are certain research publications which also consider these hydropower, but up to certain specific capacity of the generation. So in this way, we can found that we can conclude with all this discussion that the integration of renewable energy resources into the main grid is a challenge, right? It has some advantages of local generation of electricity, but it is equally disadvantageous if it is not properly connected to the grid, right? And that's why the connection issues or the control issues for these connections, they are the major challenges, right? And the major issues connected with these renewable resources, they are the intermittence, randomness, and uncertainty caused by meteorological factors on which the generation is dependent. So if we call about this distributed energy resources, so we are going to use two different terms. But earlier we discussed this renewable energy resources, and now we are discussing the term distributed energy resources, right? So this is distributed energy resources. You can say the distributed generation also, right? And in recent years, these distributed generation of electricity, it has become taken attention of the moderns as a modern solution, and because it provides several advantages such as high efficiency, because generation is being consumed at that very local site, so that losses, transmission losses, and distribution losses, and this conversion losses in the transformers, they all are not happening in such scenarios. So efficiency is high. Sometimes the environmental protection is also there, because renewable energy, most of the time renewable energy resources are having a major percentage of resources in that particular location. And third is they sometimes they are they have an they can connect to the local grid also, right? So in that way they can support the local grid and increase its reliability also in time of requirements, and they can also increase the system stability. So these are the advantages of these distributed energy resources, you can say. And these DG distributed generation plants, they integrate with their renewable resources such as photovoltaic system, wind power, then small hydro turbines, tidal systems, tidal power generation, and this biogas, sometimes a fuel cell also, etc., etc. Right? So these are the renewable resources, and that is also highlighted here in the example on the one. They also use these energy storage systems or these conventional generators, which are based on this diesel generators or something like that, some gas generators, etc. They can also be the part, or they can also become. So we can say these renewable resources, they are a subset of this DERs, right? So here this basic difference is there, which we have to consider in our future discussions. Okay. This uncertainties which are always associated with the renewable resources, they are overcome by this energy storage systems and micro conventional generators. Whenever there is a shortage, these two devices, they can be used in conjunction with these renewable resources to remove these, to overcome these uncertainties, right? So we shall always remember that these are the distributed generation sources. They are basically advantages also, and they are these control issues of when they become the part of this microgrid, their control is also a very challenging issue. So they are not this easy as we are thus discussing it. So we will discuss those issues later, but right now we will discuss the advantages of DERs, which I am simply explaining from the beginning. But just to summarize them, I will say that they are having the high efficiency and energy production savings, environmental protection, reduction of transmission and distribution losses, then supporting the local power grid in hour of requirement, Then enhance system stability and reliability. Whenever there is a shortage of power, it can immediately feed. Then this local generation of electricity can defer the generation, transmission, and distribution capacity investment in the centralized power generation. And there is a very good example, very successful example of the Brooklyn Power Grid. Whenever you have an opportunity, you just write it as a case study. The Brooklyn Power Grid is a very good example of this deferral of generation, transmission, and distribution capacity investments. And this DERs, they are also have this advantage of voltage control or VAR supply, ancillary services, power quality improvement. Combined heat and power is very much required in those countries where the temperature always remains very low across the throughout the year. And in this way, these distributed resources, they are capable to provide demand reduction and a standby generation also, which may be used in the time of emergencies. So if we say ki what I used a term here, ancillary services. So these ancillary services, I have just made this slide for your introduction for ancillary services. So these ancillary services are the additional services which are used by the utility companies for their advantage to allure or to attract the customers for their participation, right? So these ancillary services can include synchronized regulation, contingency reserves, black start regulation, and flexibility reserves, right? So these are the things which are also being provided by these distributed energy resources. We will not go in detail, but recently in United States of America, they have made a proper regulation where any customer who is having any renewable resources generation in his premises that can participate and can have an opportunity to earn some money from its utility company using these ancillary services or by providing these ancillary services as per the agreement with the utility company. So this integration of DRs that it requires, it is a integration depends upon the optimal sizing, control, and scheduling of participating resources. At what time, which participant, which technology will participate, because the electricity generation cost of different participating technologies may be different. Some are having very small cost and some are having very very large cost, such as diesel generator, etc. They are very large cost just because of the very high cost of the diesel. There are several research papers and which have analyzed this cost of electricity participant using these Homer softwares, right? And there comes a terms LCOE, levelized cost of energy. You can go through these papers to understand, and that is also a very good area of research for those persons who may be interested in this type of things. Then we can say this microgrid embodies these issues by integrating distributed resources into power grid together with an ability to operate in islanded mode also, right? And definitely it will work in islanded mode when there is a failure in the main grid, right? So in that case, this microgrid has a capability to operate in two modes. One is grid connected mode and second is the islanded mode. So these MGs are referred as the next generation power systems, and they are integrated with the distributed energy resources, energy storage systems, just to overcome the intermittency and a variety of loads, right? And this framework of MG tends to be more distributed, tightly integrated with the networks of in surrounding and intelligent. And just because right now we are having this advanced communication network technology, and because of this advanced communication technology, we have this facility that these distributed resources can communicate with each other immediately in the hour of requirement, right? And today, this application of microgrid is found with Internet of Things, with the Industry 4.0, in smart cities, and so many places, right? And definitely these in future you will find with the plans for these uh, plans when we are having to establish the colonies or settlements in other planets, definitely this smart grid is going to very first than some other technology generation technologies of electricity. So it will be also be required. These microgrid technologies, they are being used in the ships, they are being used in the aeroplanes, etc., etc. So this the very first definition which was found in some official document, that was in 2012, where this US Department of Energy, in its report of this 2012, they published this definition of microgrid as, here is the point to understand, please be attentive, that microgrid has been defined as interconnected loads and distributed energy resources. Clear? And this group of load and resources, it has a very clearly defined electrical boundaries. It is not unbounded, right? It is clearly defined electrical boundaries, right? And whenever it is connected to the grid, right? In case of connection with the grid, it is treated as a single controllable entity. And it can connect and disconnect from the grid. And depending upon this capability, it may operate in both grid connected mode as well as islanded mode. Whenever it will work in the islanded mode, it successfully, it means it has a capability to fulfill the energy requirement of these interconnected loads, and they shall be successfully fed by distributed energy resources within that microgrid. Okay, so this was the first definition which was given, right? So it is only emphasizing on the boundary of the network of the microgrid. It is nowhere highlighting what shall be the size of the network, what shall be the size of the capacity generation, and what shall be the size of the loads. No, it is not highlighting anything about this. So this definition describes three requirements: that it is possible to identify the part of the distribution system comprising microgrid, right? And it shall be treated as a single entity by that distribution system, and it will be connected to the distribution system of the grid with a point of common coupling, right? And from that point of common coupling, it can be connected or disconnected with a switch whenever required, right? So number two, the resources connected to a microgrid, within that microgrid, they are controlled with each other, right? They can be controlled within the microgrid. They cannot, rather than they are controlled by some distant resource. Number three, microgrid can successfully function. Its function will not dependent on it is grid connected or not. Means it can successfully function in grid connected as well as this grid connected and isolated, right? In both modes, it can be successfully work. But this particular definition, as I told you earlier, it is not highlighting the size of the DERs. It is not highlighting the any requirement for the type of technologies. No, only renewable resources can be part of it. No, any type of technology which is capable of generating electricity at a distributed source, it can be the part of this microgrid, right? Then comes this SIGRE definition. This SIGRE group is a 66 point C6.2022 working group was formed in the Europe, and this microgrid definition, SIGRE group gave this definition. You will find that this is not much different from the earlier definition, but definitely the set of words are different. So they are giving it as the microgrids are electricity distribution systems containing loads and distributed energy resources. Yes, earlier was talking about the load and resources. It is saying loads and distributed energy, nothing different, right? And that can be operated in a controlled and coordinated way. Same set of words, it can be connected. It can be, the loads are interconnected, generations are interconnected, and a proper control technology is established within the microgrid to control them, right? And they can also connect, they can successfully work, either they are connected to the main power network or they are islanded, right? So the same meaning of the words, or you can say almost same words, are used by both the definitions, either is the US definition or it's the SIGRE definition, right? So on the basis of different literatures, we can identify that whatever was the reason of the microgrid conceptualization of the microgrid, the major 5 critical functions were identified, right, which were deciding it being a microgrid. Number 1, the nature of connection with the main utility, precise energy and power balance within the microgrid. It can be controlled, well controlled, and this energy balance can be established in grid islanded mode, right? It is also having this energy storage within the microgrid. It is successfully implementing the demand management within the microgrid, right? And this balance of generation and load is sufficiently controlled in all the weathers, right? Because in all the weathers, it is highlighting because it may use some wind energy or some solar energy, which is intermittent in nature in different seasons. Okay, so in this way, these are the 5 critical functions which are conceptualized, which are the basic concepts for the formation of microgrid. So this is a conceptual picture of microgrid with its critical functions, as I told you there. So here it is the number 1, nature of connection with the main utility. Then comes the number 2, this connection is basically that this is the main grid and this is the microgrid, and here is this switch which is connecting it with the microgrid or disconnecting from it whenever it is required. Then their second comes as the energy storage. It may be some chemical energy storage, batteries, flywheels, connected electric vehicles. So many things may be there, and these will provide energy when generation is low. They will balance effects, and they will also provide, in case of AC grids, they will provide this frequency control, right? And it was precise energy and power balance within the microgrid, means different energy generation sources are there. Solar is there, wind power is there, and some biopower plants are there. There may be fuel cell also. There may be some other energy resources also, some hydrogen plant, etc., etc. So many things may be there, right? And whenever there are multiple resources and loads, there must be a management control or energy management system, right? So this energy management system is also required, which will balance this energy, which will balance this demand depending upon the availability of power and requirement of the load, right? And it will also have different models for it, where it will try to establish, try to fulfill the requirement in a very economical way and with differential rates, means depending upon the consumption, the rates of electricity supply may change, means time of use of charges, jo concept here, that may also be a part of this. It may not have the continuous similar charges throughout the day, and it may have some environmental target to bring the temperature below this 2 degree or 1.5 degree, as much the requirement of different protocols which have been established for this climate change concerns. And it is also, this demand management will also take care or control this stability when it is connected with the outside grid. And similarly, the last point which has been considered here as seasonal match between generation and load, because in case of different seasons, they shall have this possibility to have different productions, and they shall also have these long-term storage such as pump hydro and this hydrogen gas, etc., etc. Right? So these are the conceptual pictures of microgrid, which are practically being implemented in different locations. And if we explore what are the various microgrid generation and storage options, so I will just present an overview. I have taken it one paper of 2018, and that is also referred over here. So there are two different categories. One is the generation and second is the storage that I have explained on the next page. Just So for generation, the different options has been considered as this diesel and spark engine ignition IC engines. That is a very old and reliable option. Second, we have considered these micro turbines. Third, we are considered these fuel cells. And finally, we have considered in the last as renewable resources generation, where this is solar PV, wind turbine, mini hydro, this all will be considered, right? So if we start from these DG and IC engine based options, so they have an advantage of being dispatchable, right? They are very much dispatchable. It means their generation and requirement of supply can be controlled, right? They can be controlled in the order of requirement of load with varying time, right? Number two, they have a very quick startup, means no initial starting time is required. And as I told you, in those countries which are typically cold, they can also provide heating options along with electricity generation, right? Because they also generate a lot of heat in this conversion process for electricity generation, right? So these are the advantages, but there are certain disadvantages also. Means they are a sufficient source of noise, and today you can see there are some generators which are having the canopy with them, but that canopy, that isolation of sound, that is definitely very expensive to cover. So it is not possible that for every location that shall be the soundproof. Secondly, this greenhouse gas emission is a must thing. Whenever they will run, these emissions will come out, which are definitely harmful for the environment. And there are several government restrictions are also there. And on these, specifically these nitrogen oxide and particular emissions, they are of major concerns for these climate, and they come out of this emission especially. Second comes the micro turbine. Second option is the micro turbine. Similarly, they are also very well controllable, so they are dispatchable and they are having very low emissions. Mechanically, they are very simple, right? And they are having multiple fuel options. They may be gas also, there may be some biofuel also, and they are also this combined heat and power capable, but they are having a disadvantage. Their fuel may be different, but all these fuels, whatever they are generating these greenhouse gas emissions. That is the disadvantage. Then comes the fuel cell, right? So these fuel cell technologies, they are very technologically, they are very new. And if whatever technologies are a bit older, means some 10 years you can say, but they are not technically that much developed in bulk. They are still very expensive, right? But they are coming up with very high pace, and there is a lot of research happening in those areas to how to make how to increase the efficiency of fuel cell, because this all is happening with some physical properties of the membrane and other chemical reactions, whatever being taken, and they are being classified as solid oxide. They are being second category molten carbonate, phosphoric acid alkaline, and this low temperature PEM. These are the few technologies by which these fuel cells are being developed. With the help of these technologies, they are developing the fuel cell, and definitely they are dispatchable. They can generate, they can vary their generation. They are CHP capable also. They can use this, they can generate heat in some cases, right? And the very good example is that they are zero on-site pollution, right? And sometimes they generate in some not sometimes they generate this hydrogen also, right? In this cases, which can be used some another energy resource or a storage facility. With the storage facility, we can use as this thing as a fuel for this further operation of fuel cells, right? But as I told you, these technologies are not much developed, so they are relatively expensive, right? And their lifetime is also very small. So very soon they will have to replace the complete setup if you want to use this technology further. Finally, it comes as RES generations. We all know that all these technologies, they are available with very high efficiencies in comparison to other earlier place technologies. And they are having this zero fuel cost, zero emissions. Yes, they are definitely having some very high installation cost, but there are several calculations available in the literature where the advantages are much more with the time in comparison to the initial investment cost, right? But there are disadvantages that they are not dispatchable without storage, and they are variable, not controllable. But this is also being overcome with the use of storage, as we have discussed earlier. And in the next slide, I will discuss these storage options with you. Presently, the storage options are with the conventional batteries, which were lead acid, sodium sulfur, very recent lithium ion, and this nickel cadmium, etc., right? So these are the battery options which are well developed, and new technologies are also in the process of development. And these technologies have a advantage. They are the well proven technologies, right? So they have a long history of research and development, and on the basis of, on the background of that history, the new researchers are also coming, and we are having a lot of hope for the future also. But the disadvantage is that the limited number of charge discharge cycle, because every battery comes with the fixed number of cycles for charging and discharging, number one. Number two, this older lead acid battery, for this particular battery there was a very good system and it was almost recyclable, right? So whenever you sell it, you get some money or some discount in the purchase of a new battery for your household inverter, right? But as we know that the upcoming these lithium ion batteries and nickel cadmium batteries, yes, they are more, if they have found more efficient in some terms, but their waste disposal is still a challenge, and it is a big threat for this for the environment, and a challenge for the local authorities also, how to ensure the waste disposal for these lithium ion batteries and nickel cadmium batteries, etc., etc. Then next option comes as flow batteries, that is also known as regenerative fuel cells, right? And these are they include this zinc bromide, polysulfide bromide, and vanadium redox, right? And advantage is that they have this decoupled power and energy storage, and they are capable to support continuous operation at maximum load, right? So this is an advantage in comparison to other batteries, and they can completely discharge without risk of damage. This particular advantage is not available with other batteries because you can simply discharge them up to a minimum capacity, not beyond that, right? But they are still in a very early stage of deployment, and very early stage of development, you can say, and that's why they are very costly also. Then comes the hydrogen from hydrolysis. That is also a very good option of storage. Mostly it comes from this fuel cell operations, right? So this is having an advantage that this is a very clean fuel, right? And sometimes what happens, this hydrogen is also being used as a fuel in some very developed countries. France is having a very good fleet of this hydrogen based vehicles, right? And very good advantage of that whenever this hydrogen is used for energy consumption, like battery of this car operation, car driving, fuel for car or electric this hydrogen vehicle, you can say, they also generate the pure water as the outcome, right? So in those countries where this water is also being a scarcity in the coming years, where you have to purchase a bottle of 20 rupees for 1 liter drinking water, this can also be very side product of this particular technology, right? But what is the difference between this the very limited limitation with this hydrogen is that this pressure building in the hydrogen tank is a very difficult task, right? As you have seen in the CNG filling plants, you have to put these cars continuously. One is filled, then second immediately second one come and that can be filled. But in case of this hydrogen filling stations, you have to wait for a longer duration for building of the pressure, right? So that is a very limitation, very specific limitation with these hydrogen fueled cars, right? But this particular storage option is relatively efficiency is sometimes low, and in comparison to investment of time and investment of money, right? And hydrogen storage is also a big challenge, and that is the reason it is not still that developed, even being that it is one of the most clean technology for storage, right? But still it is certainly just because of these limitation, it is not yet developed. Then comes the kinetic energy storage, which is being used as a flywheels, where this mechanical storage is there. That is having the advantage of very fast response, very high charge and discharge cycles, and very high efficiencies. Losses are very less, right, during the process of conversion. But if it is on standing for a very long duration, then the losses are very high, right? And it has a very limited discharge time. So in case of when very limited discharge time is there, it is a very efficient and very fast responding energy resource. So this is the comparison of different generation technologies and storage technologies, right? So finally, we can conclude on the basis of all these discussions that microgrid helps in efficient transformation of passive network into an active one, because the consumer becomes a prosumer in that. That also is generating, means they are not only consuming electricity, they are also producing the electricity. But it is additional responsibility lies with the bidirectional control of power flow and management, and reliable and continuous supply. And definitely when this storage is at a very local level, then power quality is also improved, right? And with this new generation power quality interfaces and control techniques available presently, this control of microgrid with DG integration has not remained that big challenge. It can be easily controlled, right? So these are some advantages of microgrid. They are almost similar to the advantages of distributed energy sources, not much different. So we will move further. Yes, there are some limitations with these, and they are the optimal use, how to use the energy resources optimally, how to control them, and this lack of protection and regulatory standards. They are much concerned, and we will find in some later discussion in some slide that most of the research presently happening in these three areas only. One is the optimal energy management, and second is the control of microgrid. How to control this AC grid, how to control this AC microgrid, DC microgrid, etc., etc., right? And sometimes in case of DC generation and distribution network, the protection is also a bit challenge, right? One other type of concern which comes with the microgrid, that is the customer's privacy. There is, when you are managing the generation and consumption both for any customer, you can easily get what is happening with this customer, what type of loads it is using, when he is using, what time of day he is using. So some customers of the utility companies, they consider it as encroachment in their privacy. So these are certain issues which are under consideration and in some developed countries, not with us. In our country, we simply try to get the electricity at some very economical cost with very high reliability, means it shall be made available whenever required. So let me tell you, we shall go back to this history of this term of microgrid. Uh, the very first example of microgrid was the Thomas Alva Edison's concept of that DC network, which he laid down with the help of with that Perloff Street, where this 11-kilometer network was laid down, and some more than 400 customers were supplied in that particular area, right? And so let me tell you that geographical boundary was very clearly defined. It means 11-kilometer road. Number of connections fixed. Type of generation, yes, there was no concept, and he was using those diesel generating plants for moving those DC generators which he was using, right? So if we explore this experiment, it clearly fits in the constraints given by both the definitions of either cigarette definition of US Energy Department definition. It was also a microgrid, right? So Additions company, they installed such 50 microgrids in next 4 years, right? But later with this economy of scale, etc., they emphasized on the generation of, they emphasized on the this installation of a very big power plant, and all this concept of microgrid faded, and it was totally replaced by those very large size generating plants, right? And what happened recently? Recently, these microgrids are driven due to advantages of very high reliability and power quality. Then how this happened? This happened because recently in last few years, last few decades, you can say, these power electronics interface technology, the control of these distributed energy technologies with the help of this power electronics has been immersed, has boomed a lot, right? So in this way, with the easy control, low cost energy storage, and easy accessibility for these fuel cell, etc., easy availability in the market, this has engaged electricity consumers for local electricity generation and form the microgrid. And who was the first person who established the very first microgrid? So this microgrid, very first microgrid, was initiated in this campus of this University of Wisconsin-Madison, where this Robert Lesaster, he was a researcher, and he was investigating on some small micro turbines which were less than 100 kilowatts, right? And there were several micro turbines which were installed in different buildings of that university, right? And their purpose was to provide the electricity to that very building only, right? They were not designed, or they were not controlled earlier for interacting with each other. No, not at all, right? But what happened? This particular gentleman, he attempted to operate them synchronously, right? As one integrated power generation source, means they shall be operated from a single point, single control point, right? So, as they were not designed to cooperate, they did not. So what happened initially? Their interconnections, they were having different designs. They were having different. They may also having this different capacities. So what was happening? This was generating dangerous voltages and frequency fluctuations. And in that process, the setup was crashing, right? So finally, this Robert Leicester was successful in designing some hardware to control them from a single point, which were capable to regulate the voltage and frequencies which were not cooperating earlier, but with the help of that hardware, which he called controller, right? So that particular controller, with the help of that controller, he was successful in regulating the voltage and frequencies. And in that way, multiple generators and loads, they were connected seamlessly to form a simple power grid, right? And definitely this particular simple power grid was functioning during the power failures, means when the grid was not supplying the power to them. So whenever the grid was supplying the power, those particular buildings which were the part of this smaller grid, they were getting supply from the grid. And when this grid was not able to supply, there was no power, this particular smaller grid was sufficiently capable to fulfill the requirement of those buildings, and it was being controlled from a single point, right? So this particular proof of concept, which is still available in this Columbus, Ohio, right? This particular setup and this gentleman Robert Leicester, you can say this is the first description when this particular concept was successfully functioning. And this became later was named as microgrid, right? And this Leicester in 2002 IEEE PES winter meeting laid out its vision in his talk titled Microgrids, right? And the details of this particular talk are available in this particular paper, which is titled with microgrids, and it is available in IEEE Explore with IEEE PES winter meeting. It is, you can simply search it there. And later in 2004 also, the Robert Leicester and his group, they again published a paper in Germany, one conference, and that was Microgrid, a conceptual solution, right? So this was the very first time when the term microgrid appears in the technical literature, right? And whatever the vision which was given by Leicester at that time, that was much advanced, means he presented in 2002, and the first definition of microgrid, which was published by this US Ministry of Energy, that was in 2012, right? So Leicester emphasized on his vision as a microgrid should be able to operate independently or in islanded mode from the central grid. Number two, the system should be modular, right? So these are the points which I have taken from this paper. First one, that the system should be modular so that new generation sources and loads can be added to the system without additional configuration. Means whenever you want to plug and play with new load as well as new generator, right? You can do that. Third, microgrids could be linked to the central grid for drawing the power or supplying the power to the grid or from the grid, right? So means it can successfully work. He did not use this thing term at that time, but it was definitely, it can successfully work with grid connected or islanded mode, okay? So this foundational now, very much important thing is there, how this research started in this particular, how these research programs were started in this microgrid area, right? So if you search this literature, you will find that this systematic research and development programs on this area of microgrid, there were two basic programs you will find. One was CERTS, CERTS. It stands for Consortium for Electric Reliability Technology Solutions. It was started in USA. And second was the project, which was microgrids, right? So this was the part one, which was started in Europe. and later the second part of this started as more microgrids, right? So they are having their own websites. You can, if you want to get more information about them, you can take it from there. I will definitely explain some very small brief introduction of these. So this CERTS of USA, this was formed in 1999, and it was recognized as the origin of the modern grid connected microgrid concept. And it envisioned that it shall incorporate multiple distributed energy resources, and it shall be presented to the existing grid either as a typical customer or as a smaller generator, right? Means either it can supply to the grid or it can take electricity from the grid, right? In order to remove perceived challenges to integrating DERs, because those were the days when there were several challenges which were not solved. There were unsolved challenges, several, which are solved today, but in that time they were not solved, right? So just in those areas which were not solved, this research started. So the basic objective was emphasized as this islanding and grid connection, whenever happen as per the requirement, that shall be seamless and automatic, right? So it was targeting to develop the sufficiently capable control technologies for this islanding and grid connection. Number two, they were also emphasizing on passive control strategies, right? Where this reactive power voltage versus voltage, active power versus frequency, and power flow versus frequency control strategies can be developed and implemented, right? So very basic difference I will like to highlight here. What was the difference between this CERT program and microgrid program? Basically, the CERT program in USA was developed or it was explored just to improve the reliability, right? It is nowhere mentioned that the CERT was having an objective to reduce greenhouse gas emissions. No, it was totally emphasizing on the more reliability of the power network, right? And it is clearly mentioned there was no limitations that MGs cannot incorporate renewable resources which are responsible for lesser greenhouse gas emissions. So these renewable resources can be a part of that, but the target was, the emphasis was only on the improving reliability. And here comes the microgrid project, which is having also, I do not know how to, why this is coming every time. Yeah, so this is the website of this microgrids project. It is www.microgrids.eu, right? And this particular microgrid project was distributed among 11 European Union countries, which were having 22 partners, either from the industry or from the academia, right? So this all is listed over here, which country was participating. Mainly 11 countries were Great Britain, Portugal, Spain, Netherlands, Denmark, France, Greece, Germany, Switzerland, Italy, and Poland, right? So several of them were the universities such as University of Manchester, University of Leeds, right? And other were the industrial partners, right? And they started exploring the technical challenges of safe islanding and reconnection, energy management, control strategies for both islanded and grid connected modes, and the development of these protection equipments and communication protocols for communication within the microgrid and with outside grid or outside network. Next comes the microgrid architecture. We will discuss about the architecture. So we are continuously reading this. This is distributed energy sources, means sources, loads, and some critical loads, right? So again, the connection is to the power point of common coupling. The modes are grid connected and islanded, right? And definitely with these power electronic interfaces, we can, these power electronic interfaces are the main, component with which we are achieving the objectives of controlling it, metering it, protecting it, and definitely the feature of plug and play depending upon the modular loads and additional sources. Whenever required, we can play this plug and play facility. It is being provided only with the electronic interfaces, right? And what happens in case of this grid connected mode? This microgrid has a capacity. It can participate in electricity trading with the main grid, and it may supply or take electricity depending upon its requirement, right? So these all things we will discuss in a next slide, where this particular diagram is reflecting this microgrid structure, and it clearly all the stakeholders in the microgrid, they are visible here. And the source for this is this particular paper, where it highlights that this is the switch through which it is connected from the microgrid. Then other stakeholders are electric vehicles, then are the smart buildings, smart homes, energy storage systems of different type, either it is battery or some mechanical or chemical battery sources, or some this pump storage facility, etc. Then comes the conventional generation sources with the small generators to the big thermal power plants. Then comes the renewable resources in different capacity, right from the limited few watts to multiple megawatts, right? Right now, these solar power plants, they are available in the capacity of thousands of megawatt, you can say. They are available, right? And recently, some few months back, some 700 megawatt plant was this was inaugurated in India near Rewa, Madhya Pradesh, right? So here in this diagram, we can see that all these stakeholders, they are interacting with the central controller through a local controller, right? So every stakeholder is having its own local controller, right? And this yellow lines, that indicates the flow of information, means ICT connection. And this particular line, black one, it is having the energy flow connection, right? So all these local controllers for every stakeholder, they are connecting with microgrid controller, and this microgrid central controller is having advantage of his having the facility of this weather forecast. It is also having a facility of this having a close eye on the energy market, and depending upon the cost of electricity and the electricity generated or excess electricity available within this microgrid, it can exchange electricity, means it can sell or purchase electricity from the energy market, right? So this is a architecture of this microgrid which is presently functioning. Then comes the classification of microgrid. Microgrid can be classified depending upon the power type, supervisory control, operation mode, phase, and application. On the power type, it can easily classified as AC and DC. For supervisory, it can be controlled as centralized control or decentralized control. Operation mode is very clear right from the beginning of the definition of this microgrid. They can either operate in islanded mode or grid connected mode. And finally, single phase or three phase. And then comes the application. There are globally you will find that there are several applications either in the academic campuses or in the residential campuses or in the military setups, or one is Santa Rita Jail is a very famous example. That is also a residential facility where you can find it operation. I will show you a list of all those successful installations of microgrid across the globe. Then this comes the microgrid energy management system. Basically, this is a software which provides this basic support services and set of applications for this functionality of microgrid, right? How it will work with in conjunction with the generation and transmission facilities. So the user of the participant in the microgrid shall get reliable supply, means with adequate security, means whatever power whenever is required, that much amount of power is available at the time of requirement and at a minimum cost, right? So these two things, they are the basic target of this energy management system. And to fulfill all these requirements, this energy management system consists of modules of distributed energy resource forecasting, their generation forecasting, as well as this whatever will be the generation and what will be the consumption, right? So this all is being forecasted for a successful operation. Then comes the human machine interface, and finally it controls the everything with SCADA, right? So these are the basic components. Among the other participants, they are also the major modules of the energy management system, right? So we all know that whatever the roles of this microgrid, whatever the advantages of microgrid, they are being provided by these microgrid energy management system. So not to emphasize much on this, we will move further. What are the functions, right? So the major functions of these microgrid energy management systems are monitoring, analyzing, and forecasting of power generation, load consumption, energy market prices, ancillary market prices, and meteorological factors which will govern the generation or consumption also, right? So these are the two things, and you can clearly explain here these particular components, these human resources, conventional generators, energy storage, this demand response, electric vehicles, then power grid means energy market and ancillary services, they can how they are connected with this, right? And this weather forecast, they all participate, and all this data is being analyzed for forecasting of generation or the load, right? And then it is optimized for how much electricity can be taken for energy market, or it can be supplied to energy market, right? And that also shall be done in the real time, because it if calculations are not made, because electricity is a commodity in the market which you will have to consume at that very instant of supply, right? You cannot store it economically as a consumer, right? So definitely it is a very real time analysis which is required for this particular analysis, this particular job, and that is the basic function of. In this way, you can find that these functions of microgrid energy management system are really critical, right? Because whenever there is some optimization regarding energy requirement or some cost, they have to satisfy the several type of constraints, right, in real time. So in this way, this is a typical thing. So with this particular diagram, you can find the different objectives of the energy management system of a microgrid. These are the objectives, and these are the constraints which shall be fulfilled, right? So these are, in this way you can find the number of objectives and number of constraints. It is not always easy to fulfill all the constraints and achieve all the objectives, right? So in that case, you will have to make certain manipulations, you have to make certain compromises for the minimum cost of the electricity which can be provided, right? So in this way, you can find, if you go through this, you will find that the constraints are reliability, physical limits of conventional generators, physical limits of energy storage systems, network constraints through which the electricity will travel, energy balancing, output limits of renewable energy sources, demand response, and then reactive power support. These are some very specific constraints which are to be fulfilled, right? And objectives are the greenhouse gas emission cost, right? Then load shedding penalty cost, losses cost, demand response incentive. If consumer is participating in demand response, so definitely he is entitled for some incentives, right? And he is also entitled if there are undefined outages and interruptions, then definitely the customer is and this company, utility company, will have to pay that cost. Battery degradation cost, that shall be minimum. Energy transaction cost shall be minimum. Operational maintenance cost shall be minimum. So all these things means levelized cost of energy, as I told you, that is a very common term, LCOE, right? And this operational and maintenance cost of energy storage systems. So in this way, these are the things, and these are the recycling. There is a complete recycling of all these resources takes place. Sometimes there are certain old batteries of electric vehicles. There are literature available which justifies that that particular old batteries can be also be used for a limited duration for energy storage. So just to minimize the cost further. And this complete research which is taking place, which has taken place in the past, or it is taking place presently, this complete research is happening in these two areas. One is the energy management, and second is the control in case of microgrid management, right? In case of control, we can find out that frequency control, voltage control, active power, reactive power control, and some other parameters, right? Basically, these focus on these four areas in this grid connected and islanded mode, both, right? And this grid connected further goes to decentralized or centralized control, where these are VF control, master slave control, troop control. These are the certain areas for which these literature reviews are available, and you can find multiple type of this research papers on this particular area, right? And but still, this control aspects, they are a bit difficult to handle, and you will also find that this available literature, this energy management is more explored in comparison to this control, right? And where this energy management, as I told you, with all these constraints and objectives, this has been done for cost, emission, revenue losses, etc., etc. And these optimization are done in multifunction, single function, right? And in this way, this particular area has been explored more in comparison to this control. And here comes a hierarchical control of distribution system. Dr. Chauhan,
Yes, sir.
what is the time limit for me? I think it is more.
Yeah, we have like 10 minutes more,
10
actually.
minutes. Okay. So, so these are the different control. Thank you. I will do that. There are different control methods available for this hierarchical control of a distribution system. We will not go in that direction, right? So very good example of this is, you can just read it. I will just leave it for your reading, that this operation and control of a microgrid can be explained with this IIT Illinois Institute of Technology. They have a very good setup, and this particular paper was published in this IEEE Power and Energy magazine in 2014. I invite you to read this paper, and definitely you will get a very first glance of this electricity control, this microgrid control, how this is happening, and in how many levels it is happening, right? So there are several levels: primary control, secondary control, and this is the primary control, this is the secondary control, and finally it is happening this tertiary control, where this grid interaction is taking place. Interaction with grid is taking place in the last, right? And several components which are participating in the microgrid, they are the wind turbine, energy storage, switches, meters, coupling switch at point of common coupling, building controllers, gas turbine, solar PV, they all are participating, right? And this secondary control, this is controlling and monitoring all these components, right? And it is also interacting with, for information, it is interacting with grid coordination, and this is the switch through which it is getting the power, right? And this particular example of microgrid in Illinois Institute of Technology, this was first time it was observed, it was developed as a self-healing grid, and it was capable of islanding and resynchronization. So you will find in this paper, this is PES magazine of 2014, right? And You can read it, right? So these things I will leave for your reading, and I will move further. The five drivers of microgrid developments can be classified in three different broad categories, right? And this particular this can be classified as energy security, economic benefits, and clean energy integration. So this energy security means continuous availability of supply. This is very much essential in those areas where which face several outages due to some bad weather or because of some natural calamities, right? So in those areas, grids have this where these grid outages have taken place, and it is in survey of this particular survey was mentioned in this 2018 paper of Guerrero. I have referred it earlier. It was mentioned that this data was taken from there. This $18 to 33 billion was the cost per year average for this duration, right? And this is the cost which they have calculated, including the lost output and wages, spoiled inventory, delayed production of different products, and damage to the electricity network, right? So just because of these reasons, they have lost this much. And the promoters of microgrid or the lawyers of this microgrid, they say that this could be avoided, or a part of this could be avoided, if microgrids were there in those areas, right? Then comes the cascaded outages. In what happened in August 2003, there was a major blackout in northeast US, right? And I still remember that, and you can get this details in this particular thing. And that was the time when the people were on the road just because no lifts were functioning, no water supply, no electricity was there, right? And 50 million people were affected first time, right? And it was a major blackout after this 1996 blackout in the US. And from this particular August 2003, this power system has developed in a different directions. These developments were made in the technology. So this is a major point. This is a major milestone of power system history, you can say, right? And this 61,000, almost 62,000 megawatt of load was impacted, right? But as we know that there was another blackout in India, which happened in July 30, July 31. For continuous 2 days it happened, right? And in comparison to this 50 million, this particular blackout affected 600 million people. And this is a world record of largest affected population by a single blackout, right? And this particular is a big number. This is almost a tenth of the world's population, right? And yes, it is the largest power outage. You can find the details of this particular outage in IEEE spectrum. But this 2012 is not a very old thing. We all who are here must be remembering these blackouts, because these blackouts they continuously took place for 2 days, right? Then there are some more energy security issues. They are due to this cyber and physical attacks. We are having these reported that in 2015, Ukraine, 2016, Israel, they were having, and recently in Russia and Uganda, right, they were having these cyber physical attacks. Just because of that, this power supply was compromised. Recently, there was a major this outage in power outage in Mumbai last year in October. and it was also suspected that there was some cyber attack angle from the China, but it was never verified by any of the authority. But there was a lot of discussion about this, right? And simply there are physical attacks. Sometimes the thieves have taken away the transmission line, or a crowd, they attacked this California substation. A very large transformer was attacked by the public in 2013. So these are some physical and cyber attacks. They are also become the cause of this failure in electricity supply, and they have this energy security issues. And it is very clear that if we are having these microgrids in these particular areas, these dependence on their dependence on the outer side grid can be reduced, and these much number of affected pupils may be lesser. Then comes the economic benefits, right? As I told you earlier, this example of deferred construction cost, yes, because of by developing very small microgrids in different communities, which were very cost effective, you can say cheap in establishment, and they were established in those areas to fulfill the increased requirement of electricity, right? And in this way, some cities such as Brooklyn and Queens area of New York, they deferred the new construction of one substation, which was going to be costed, which were going to have a cost of this $1 billion, right? So in comparison to them, this large figure, in comparison to this large figure, the investment which was made on those smaller microgrids, that was much less, right? You can simply Google it with Brooklyn microgrid, okay? And as per the standard data, you can find this transmission line or distribution system that cost between $40,000 to $100,000 per mile, depending upon the design, geographical area, and labor cost. So these costs can be deferred with the implementation of local microgrids within the communities, right? And then comes the fuel saving, because this transmission cost can be losses, they waste between this 5% to 10% as the official data. So this can also be reduced. This is also one of the economic benefit, right? Additionally, these microgrid generating options are also capable of providing this combined heat and power systems. In that way, they can also generate heat along with the electricity. Then comes the ancillary services. As I listed you and I described a list of that ancillary services. So let me tell you that ancillary services list is also given over here. And one ruling 755 and 784 of the latest power regulations of US Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, it has mandatory resolved that the fast responding reserves like those used in microgrids be compensated, means they shall be for the customers shall be paid, or microgrids shall be paid for their participation based on their speed and accuracy. It means it is giving an additional opportunity for new revenue generation to the participating microgrids and its users. Okay, so in this way, these ancillary services are also going to result in economic benefits. Then comes the clean energy integration. Yes, the clean energy integration is always on the agenda of all the countries across the globe. There are also policy requirements through these United Nations, this Paris Agreement, then Kyoto Protocol, etc., right? And this clean energy integration, what happens just because of these energy, when this more renewable energy penetration is there, sometimes if there is excess electricity generation, right, like more wind is there or more solar radiance is there to generate excess electricity, in those days, what happens? These utility companies, what they do, they sell electricity on the negative price. Means consumers are requested to use excess electricity in those particular days because it is the requirement of the network provider at that time. And in this way, users are requested to use more electricity just to save the grid, right? And in this way, users are paid for using this extra electricity. This is also a very interesting fact. If you find it there, what are the various deployment of microgrids? As I told you on the time of classification, there are several deployments like campus or institutional, military microgrids, residential microgrids, and remote and rural microgrids, right? So these are there are several examples, and here you can find some a list of those microgrid projects which are established across the globe, right? And there are few of them are in India also. Very one is one of those is Larsen and Toubro Chennai campus. This is a very small campus. It was established in 2009, and it is having a capacity of 1.82 megawatt, almost 2 megawatt, right? And this is having this renewable resources of 138 kilowatt generation is there through renewable resources, right? So in this way, this is a complete list which I have shared on these 2 pages, right? And the very one of the very interesting example of this Santa Rita Gel microgrid, there's a typing mistake here. It is not Japan, it is USA. Please excuse me for this. I will correct it in my you please read it as US, right? This is not Japan, right? So let me tell you, this Santa Rita Jail microgrid is a very interesting example. I will explain you here, right? This is the Santa Rita Jail. This is in Dublin, California. The features are, this is as it is in US. So definitely this is a CERT based microgrid. That is the CERT is the US protocol, right? Where it is having some renewable energy generation, large scale energy storage, and one company named Chevron Energy Solutions has developed it and designed and constructed it, right? So it is having some 1.2 megawatt rooftop solar PV system. It is having 1 megawatt fuel cell power plant with heat recovery for facility hot water and space heating. It is having some 5 numbers of 2.3 kilowatt wind turbines. It is having 1.2 megawatt emergency backup diesel generators. Additionally, it is having 2 megawatt advanced energy storage system. And then comes a sub-cycle 12 kilowatt sub-cycle static disconnect switch to having this islanding capability, right? So earlier this particular jail, which is situated within at some island within some sea area, right? It was totally importing this diesel for its generation, and now this is developed with this, and it is since 2002 it is successfully implementing, right? This microgrid model.
Sir, we are running short of time.
Sir, give me 2 more minutes. I will simply close it in the next 2 minutes. So there are certain challenges which we as a power engineer you shall keep in your mind, that these challenges are legal and regulatory uncertainty also. That implementation of microgrids depends on the local laws of the land also. Then some interconnection policy is also being decided by different countries for different type of utilities. That is also a very interesting area for research, right? Then comes the utility regulation, and very recent trend is of the utility opposition, because utility is also opposing the integration of this microgrid in their network, because this adds uncertainty in their planning for next year or next week or for the coming day, right? So in this way, these challenges are very interesting, and every power system engineer or every regulator shall take care of all these things. And in this way, these are the future prospects where this microgrid is going to be a part of this upcoming smart grid technology, right? And in those areas, as I explained you in the microgrid architecture, how this microgrid is going to be a part of that, how it is going to be participated in the market, because finally, whatever the technology is, everything, every final outcome comes in the terms of economy. It comes in the term of money, right? So finally, we can say these this power grid is a very this microgrid is a useful thing. I will just mention a statement of this former chairman of Motorola Corporation that says that the perfect power microgrids will ensure absolute and universal availability of energy in the quantity and quality both necessary to meet every consumer needs, right? It is a system that never fails the consumer, means it will provide the electricity whenever and wherever required, right? When it comes to reliability, the need for microgrids can be easily justified, right? So there are so many things. There are several, you can find multiple developments and advancements in this particular area of microgrid and technology, but still there is a long way to go in this particular area of research in microgrid. And you will find that yes, a lot of things are on stake, and you will definitely you can find that this microgrid is not a single technology, but it is a combination of several systems that can be exploited by different service providers or different agencies across the globe. So in this way, it holds enormous opportunities corresponding to advancement of technology in power system specifically. Thank you very much. If you have any questions, you can give your questions. I'm ready to take the questions. Any questions?
Yes, sir. So, thank you for the presentation that you had given. It had added value addition to us, and it had shown various important topics that are very important for doing research in the areas of microgrid. So, one of the question that was going through my mind was what in case of standalone system, what type of storage systems that can be selected, that can be uh, added up for the system for working for proper operation.
Yeah, I have shown those things in one specific slide where the several storage options, and in one slide, and several generation options in another slide, they were listed over there, right? So those battery options is better. This battery electric energy storage is one of those, because the cost of battery is decreasing nowadays like anything, and it has reduced a lot in last 5 years, right? Number two, there are new technologies are coming, right? This different hydrogen energy storages, etc. They are coming where you can generate hydrogen and you can store them, and again hydrogen can be recycled for electricity generation at a lower cost with one of the most clean options. Second, there is this mechanical storages in terms of flywheels, and this one was there this water lifting solutions. Why I'm just forgetting the name.
Pump storage.
Pardon? Pump storage, yeah.
Pump
storage. So this is also one of the very attractive energy storage, but their time samples and this time cycles, they are limited basically. So there are several options you can use. Some new battery technologies are also coming day by day, right? But as I told you, there are several issues regarding the newer waste disposal of the newer technologies of the battery, right? So there are certain issues. If the issues will not be there, then why the people will do the research, right? So
Yes.
then why the new policies will come and why the new technologies will be developed, right? So this is a complete cycle. Once the problem comes, then we find the solution, and again that solution has some problems, and we go again for a new solution. Okay. So as a researcher, we shall not bother about. We shall continuously keep on giving our best to the society and the community.
Sir,
Anything else?
any questions from the participants?
I hope to the best of my belief that they enjoyed the talk.
Yes, sir.
And they are kind enough that they do not want to disturb with or they do not want to delay the sessions with the new questions.
Yes, sir.
So-
You have discussed the points in a very detailed. Means in a very beginning, you have discussed the points here. Even I am working in this area, but I didn't go through that much deep in the literature, whichever you have covered here. Really, sir, I have also learned a
Basically,
lot of things here.
this was a history of microgrid. We always shall know right the things from the very beginning. And I appreciate that though it was not that having that much interesting, but my participants, my colleagues have learned and they have heard it with very patience, right? So please do contact me if you have any query regarding this. I am always available on this ashish@mnnit.ac.in, ashEESH@mnnit.ac.in, or you can have my contact number from Professor Chauhan. I hope he will keep on informing me for any updates.
Yes, I will put it in the WhatsApp group we have
Okay.
with the participants.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Thank you very much, sir, for such a nice presentation, and kindly.
Kindly accept our the presentation was very well. So we had learned many important things, sir, like means the history of microgrid, the advantages of DER, definition and applications of microgrid, different types of storages that are available, and issues related to microgrid, and how to develop the sorry, sir. So how to
Dr.
develop
Subho, I will just take 1 or 2 minutes. I'm having some queries over here. Please give me 2 minutes only, right? So I just want to make this reference of a few literature papers. Like I will thank everyone who has appreciated for this session. And there are certain questions about this protection challenges in microgrids. So there are several questions about this. So let me refer you to very good papers which have been recently published. There is a group, one research scholar from IIT Roorkee. I'm not remembering the name, but I remember the name of supervisors, Professor G.K. Singh and Professor Vinay Pant, right? The same author has published 2 different very good review papers in the area of AC microgrid protections and DC microgrid protection. And they are available in this elsewhere. Most probably either they are in electric power system research, right? So you can find it there if you simply put in the Science Direct search with this protection and microgrid, you will simply find these papers. They have very recently published either in the month of October or something around that in 2020, right? So this can be a very good reference for you. And if you are not able to find it, you can come to me. I will definitely provide it to you. You can simply write an email and I will provide. Sorry for interrupting. Yeah, Dr. Subho, you can go ahead.
Virtual memento and the